In our experience, this was awesome, right? So we had, in between doing Kiko and user voice, I'd worked on this other project, which is actually still running, called Slim Timer. And Slim Timer is a time tracking app. It's one of those classic kind of apps that freelancers build to solve their own itch, right? That they don't have huge upside to them, so I wouldn't call it a startup. But it was great in that it was a very simple app that I could use myself and other people could use. And what was great about it is that it kind of became my own personal Kiko, and then I got to a point where it had a couple of thousand daily active users on a completely free product. So eventually we introduced like a name your own price freemium thing to help pay for server costs, but by and large, they're all free users. And at the time, we weren't quite sure what to do with Slim Timer, right? It's not big enough to make any money. But again, going back to what I was saying about being a honeypot, right? We now had an active user base, and user voice was designed to help companies or products like Slim Timer. So the first test we did with user voice was hook it up to Slim Timer and get customer feedback for Slim Timer. Now I'd been running Slim Timer for probably at this point like at least a year. And so I talked to enough people where I felt like I kind of knew what the feedback was already. But I'd done a lot of work to know what the top 5 things the community wanted were. And so the test was, could we hook up user voice to Slim Timer and get the same sort of output that I got, or kind of organically by answering emails and talking to people for an extended period of time. And so we hooked up user voice, and within 24 hours, we had this really active forum with a whole bunch of ideas on it. A lot of the ones I had already known, but there were a few things that surprised me, which was great. But more importantly, I now had a list of not just like, here's the top 5 ideas in my head that I keep hearing over and over, but I now had a list of, here are all the people that actually want this feature, and here's how I can communicate directly to them and ask them follow-up questions and things like that. So I've seen a lot of people use one SaaS product that didn't quite get to the point of being a fundable or something you could pour a lot of your life into, become a great jumping off point to the next thing. Another friend of mine who went through YEC a while ago, he had in a similar thing, he had a site that sold domains. It was like instant domain search, and I think he made enough money off that he could basically bootstrap anything else he wanted to. So I think a lot of these people that are starting off with building a SaaS product, almost a lifestyle product that can make a couple $1,000 a month, but more importantly, gets you this honeypot of like, now you have a couple thousand active users that have a problem. So you can either look at making solutions that solve that same problem, or using that community to kind of populate an adjacent thing, right? User voice I would consider kind of an adjacent space to time tracking and freelancing, because a lot of the freelancers were builders. They were building sites. So it made sense to test out some of the stuff on that. But I think the best people I've seen use every product they do kind of builds upon their previous product. And not just in terms of their own technical knowledge, but like I said, you're building a community and an audience for yourself.